Today we're going to look at how you can improve the speed, accuracy, and robustness of the portfolio design process with Jacobi. Anyone who's worked on multi-asset portfolio design knows that it's an extremely labor-intensive process. We're going to focus on a pretty austere example today, zooming in on the subject of cash flows and assets and liabilities. We'll be doing this analysis on a storyboard, which is what you're looking at right now. And that's essentially the place in Jacobi where we bring together relevant portfolios, cash flows, and assumptions to tell an investment story in a visual way. In the example that you're looking at here in the scenario chart, the multi-asset investment team for a charity has a $50 million initial balance with a $1.5 million commitment every year and no new expected inflows. They now have an opportunity to fund some exciting new research, but it's going to cost an additional $1.5 million in outflows each year for the next 5 years. They need to know how that's going to impact their solvency. The great thing about Jacobi is that it's fully customizable, meaning it's not a black box at all. So the analysis we're about to see is based on this multi-asset investment team's own risk and return assumptions, their own risk factors, basically their own investment intelligence. They've already input these factors here. For example, they're risk averse in the short term and unwilling to accept the probability of a return less than 10% in a given year. So now we're ready to apply these to some different model strategies that the investment team is looking at. Here we can see a snapshot in the cash flows chart of how these outflows will now increase over the next 5 years, decreasing after the additional commitment for the new research opportunity. Moving down to the investment strategy options charts, we can see 3 different allocation strategies that this charity's investment team is looking at to maintain the real value of their capital. And these are all broken out by their own internal asset classes. By having access to all of your data in one unified location, you can easily analyze multiple portfolios simultaneously. And you can construct portfolios incorporating objectives and changes with the click of a button, essentially. Our clients have reported that by using Jacobi for these portfolio design activities and others, they've turned processes that previously took several days into ones that can be completed in almost under an hour. Now in the risk factor breakdown chart that you see, we can begin to look at the contribution to portfolio volatility by risk factor across those 3 strategies that the team is reviewing. You can obviously see that as we increase the risk, the equity risk becomes the dominating contributor. Moving along to the summary statistics charts. In this summary, we can clearly see that the conservative model is the least volatile. And while that seems great, given the charity's short-term risk aversion, how does that really help them decide which strategy to go with? Now, back to those cash flows. When we lay them over each strategy, incorporating the investment team's forward-looking assumptions, we can see the simulated range of outcomes for each model. In the traditional spreadsheet modeling world, the one that everyone pretty much works in at present, each of the investment portfolios would have to be linked to multiple spreadsheets, analyzed separately, converted into charts, and then someone would have to go into a single document and paste them so they could be viewed side by side. Actually, studies show that about 80% of our spreadsheet models have significant errors. And when you consider that a typical multi-asset portfolio is built from multiple spreadsheets being linked, this becomes someone's full-time job to quality control all of the formulas in Excel. Now, taking all of that into consideration, the conservative model shows that the real capital will decline over 10 years. The balanced fund, on the other hand, shows that capital will be maintained but with a greater downside potential. And the growth fund also is expected to maintain capital, but with a greater downside risk over the short term, which is something that we know the charity wants to avoid. Finally, it looks like the balanced and growth funds are expected to achieve the board's return objectives. But do they meet the board's risk objectives? Here we can see that the conservative fund achieves both risk objectives, while neither the balanced or growth strategies achieve either. So, in summary, with the additional grant payments, both the balanced and the growth strategies are expected to maintain the real value of capital at that median level, while only the conservative strategy will achieve the board's risk objectives. The board is therefore unable to make the additional grant payments without relaxing either its solvency or its risk objectives. Now, with the click of a button, the investment team can export this storyboard into PowerPoint or a PDF for inclusion into their report. Contact Jacobi for a full demo and learn more about how our technology is helping eliminate bottlenecks like these and create efficiencies in the portfolio construction process.